Why does no one ever talk about the sequence of return reward? Not risk, but reward. Interesting, is it not? Because everyone says the sequence of return risk, Josh. Oh my goodness, which we get our safe withdrawal rate, which is the max you can take over a certain period of time without running out of money. The counter to the sequence of return risk is a sequence of return reward. And I'm going to tell you about a guy I just literally got off the horn with, my man in, what did it say, Ohio. For dead in Ohio. This guy crushes, legend. He retired 2 years ago, 2023. Yeah, 2 years ago. I think in March of 2023, if memory serves. And let me just show you something here. You check this out. That's how much he has in his portfolio now, right? How much did he have 2 years ago? I think he said like 3.6 million or something like that. And you know what he's done? He's literally traveled around the world. He hasn't worked. And his portfolio has, so he spent a lot of money from his portfolio. And his portfolio has grown to almost 5 million. It's grown basically almost $800,000. Even though he hasn't retired, he's traveled around the world. His wife has bought some things. They're spending. Let's just put it this way. I don't want to say too much. They've had a lot of spending, and yet they're still up almost 800,000 schmackaroonies. So people say, yeah, but what's the likelihood that happens? Well, let me show you the likelihood that happens. Check this out. You ready, my friends? I hope so, because I'm driving the bus here. I am the bus driver. Time spent in bear markets by decade. This is my man Ben Carlson over at, what the hell's his name? A Wealth of Knowledge or a Wealth of Common Sense. I think it's a Wealth of Common Sense is Ben Carlson's place. What the hell is it? Wealth of, oh, you got to look him up here. I like Ben. Here he is. I guess I don't follow him here. I follow him on LinkedIn. So Ben Carlson, a Wealth of Common Sense right there. A Wealth of Common Sense. And I love what I love what Ben writes. So you can see here, we've had time spent in bear market by decade. All right, so 1900s, you can see all this. 50, so basically the only time ever in the histoire of the U.S. capital markets, going back to the beginning of last century, that we spent a majority of time in bear markets was 1910s. 1930s, 49%. Other than 2000s, we haven't spent a third in bear markets at all. This decade, we spent 14% in bear markets, which means 86% not. 2010s, zero in bear markets. 1990s, zero in bear markets. Even here, with that seventh, basically in bear markets. So from basically 1950 to now, we've spent how much in bear markets? Well, I don't know what that average would be. We could figure out quickly. I'm not going to be able to say 15%. So basically an eighth of the time we spent in bear markets. All right, so remember, the whole thing with sequence of return risk is that you're going to be retiring into 2 years of bear markets, essentially, those first 2 years. But yet we know for a fact the market is positively biased. That's why we have a standard deviation. Let me just show you. So Talker's got today, and he's got a portfolio of 70-30 stocks to bonds. All right, so we say we're using basically, I think we're using roughly a 5% rate of return with a roughly 12% standard deviation. It's a little bit different. Not quite that. It's 5.4 and 12.5. But for these numbers, I just want to use this because it's simple. So that means on any given year, we times this by 3, 36. We plus minus this. So in any given year, with a 99.8% probability, given what we're using for these inputs, he could be up 36 plus or minus 5. So up 41 or down 31. All right, so down 31, up 41. A 75-25 portfolio, which is what my man is in, I don't think it's ever been down 31%, ever. The Fidelity balanced, was it 28%? I don't know, but roughly that's the worst it's ever been, ever. A 75-30-25 portfolio. All right, so that's literally the worst case scenario. That's your sequence of return risk. That one time it happened, and that's just 1 year. I mean, you could say from 2007 to 2009, October 2007 to March of 2009, yeah, it's a bear market. But that's very, very infrequently. Why would you ever say that is the worst case scenario? I'm going to focus all my energy on that one time. When we see here, the market is positively skewed. You can see the bear market, because we expect a 5% positive rate of return. The market then says we're up 41% on our best case scenario, 99.8% of the time, but we're down 31% on our worst case scenario. Why? Because we have a positive skew. And why do we have a positive skew? Because the markets do better more often than they do poorly. It's just a fact. Let's go into this right here. Hold on a second. Minimize this real quick. They're annualized right here. You can see a hell of a lot more green than red. A hell of a lot more green than red. All right, hang tight. Ben Carlson again. Check this out. I'm surprised. Just looking for this. Since 1926, the U.S. stock market has experienced positive returns 56% of the time on a daily basis, 63% of the time on a monthly basis, 75% of the time on a yearly basis, and so on and so on. All right, so the issue here is that the market is positively skewed, which means you're more likely to be taking advantage of the sequence of market reward than you are to be hit by the sequence of market risk. Now, with that said, a 10% decline in the market means you have to have an 11% positive to get back even. I get it. Negatives are more painful than positive returns. I get that. But the market itself is positively skewed, where 56% of any given day is up, 44% is down. Again, if you extrapolate that over a month, over a year, you can even see here 73% of the time, 75% of the time, the market in the S&P 500 is up on a yearly basis versus 25% they're down. So if you're just focusing on that one time that justifies your safe withdrawal rate at 4% or 4.4, man, you're missing out on all these other times that your market, your portfolio is up relative to down, even after you're retired and spent all this money like my man did here today. So don't overlook the sequence of return reward, man. They're much more bountiful than the sequence of return risk. It's just a fact. It's just a fact, which is, again, why always you keep some cash on the side anyway. So that way, once the sequence of return risk happens, you have a bunch of cash that you can allow your stocks to stay intact to take advantage of the sequence of return reward. All right, love your thoughts. Smash and paw that like button. We'll see you. God bless.